Action successful. Cool. But I was offline for a minute. It was almost definitely because I saved an image. That's really weird. Okay, sorry about that. That was almost definitely because I saved an image. I have no idea why it's doing that, and it's incredibly obnoxious. But whenever I save an image, it does that. So the commission is definitely not on the to-do list. Warhammer First City. I don't even remember what this is called. So we're just going to do that. Back to 0 viewers. Yeah, that makes sense. It probably got that hard disconnect. We're going to put this over here. And we're actually going to put the, let's see, where is it? The image slideshow behind the animata. Because I am more important than the picture. So, let's make that a little smaller, shall we? Well, actually, let's see. Nope, there's nothing else I can do with that. That's fine. Unfortunately, I needed to be a little bigger to actually see what I'm doing, so I might take this, I might actually take that off and make that invisible and just pull it up on my desktop so that I have a good view of, a good close-up view of it. Looks like I definitely need to fade out the purple a little bit and then work it in a bit better to integrate to the skin, which shouldn't be too bad to do. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So that's really unfortunate. That's really frustrating that I'm already having problems with the connectivity. But knowing that it's because saving an image causes it to hard reset is definitely helpful. I don't know why that happens. I'm annoyed that happens, but that's a problem I can fix by just not saving images. So bully for me, I suppose. Okay, we're going to go ahead and mix those together. And then mix that in with a little bit of the flesh tone that I'm using to try and get these colors to color match a bit better. And then I think I'm just going to cover him all in a wash and give him something of a dry brush, just so I can get that deeper shadow than what I've currently got. Let's see if I can move the computer so I can see chat a little better. There we go. So let's go ahead and get to work on this lad, shall we? Well, that's way too much water. I don't need that kind of water on my paintbrush. A little bit of you. A little bit of you. And let's see what this does to the color. Definitely makes it richer. Definitely makes it more vibrant. Which is fine. Go through a couple of color shifts on the way. And then I can transition away from this color into a more fleshy color, I believe. That should work okay. There's that desiccated knuckle. Same thing closer up here. And what I think I'm going to do to try and bring this all together is I'll use the purple wash one more time to kind of unify all these colors back together. That should definitely help with the look. Right now, I'm just kind of spitballing it and hoping that it all looks okay. So let's get rid of that horrific looking. There we go. Now let's add some more of the Rakhar flesh in there to lighten it back up and bring it closer in line to the original color of the flesh tone. Because while it does have that deep shadow of purple underneath from my underspray, it's definitely not the dominant color here. We still have a very strong, pale fleshy tone to it. So that actually ends up making a very palatable transitionary color. So hopefully, all in all, this will look okay. But yeah, a combination of some mental health stuff, some physical stuff, and some technology stuff have made it so that streaming has become a lot more difficult on my end. So hopefully, I've managed to get most of those problems solved, and I can just go ahead and get back to streaming a lot more comfortably. Which is kind of the plan, kind of the goal. Because I would love to get back to streaming. I would love to get back to doing this regularly. But just had a whole bunch of other stuff get in the way of it all. And yeah, this actually is not a bad color match. Cool, cool, cool. It looks to me kind of like the magenta is doing just enough so that it's allowing the purple to transition a little better into the flesh tone, which is exactly what I want. There we go. Now, I am a little annoyed that I wasn't able to clean these mold lines a little better, but, you know, do what you can do. I didn't notice them until I had already gotten a couple layers of paint on it, so not much I can do in that case, but I suppose that's okay. Go ahead and hit that. The fact that I can't tell whether those sirens are outside or whether they're in the song is a little bit upsetting. Okay, a little bit more of the knuckle down here. And I think that'll just about do it. Now the next thing I need to do with him is make him have a little bit more. I need to go with his teeth, his eyes, with kind of a dark blue for the eyes that I can build up. And it looks kind of like a dark blue or a black to a white for his teeth. Black, that's the color. Black for his claws with some highlights, which I'm probably just going to dry brush on. This isn't going to be a display piece. This is going to be a game piece, you know? So we'll see how that all turns out. Let's also move this and do some of that with that. Are you sealed again? Nope, you got air. You can... Cool, cool, cool. Fantastic. Okay. Now let's go ahead and mix some black back up. And let's see if I can get a decent enough tip on the brush to hit that little underflap on his eye. Okay, I just need this to be a dark blue. It doesn't need to be an incredibly dark. I wonder, maybe if I flip you over. Not the best, but it'll do. See, this is one of the important things about it. Don't try and make your brush align with the model. Make your model align with the brush. This is one of the best early tips I ever got. And it's really true because it's harder to contort your wrist around the model than it is to just contort the model a little bit around your wrist. And that'll really save you a whole lot of heartache there. Just like it just did for me. Okay. Get those giant chompers, shall we? Now, I will say, something that is becoming an unpleasant reality again is I haven't had to stream with the camera in front of me. And I'll be honest, I'm using my cell phone for this. And the cell phone is definitely, to get a good enough angle with decent focus, I've got to have it like right in front of me. So it's definitely creating that problem where it's like right in the way. And all I can do is hope that I'm still doing a decent job despite it. That turned out okay. Okay. Next thing is probably going to be to hit those eyes. So let's see what we got. They're kind of a yellowy color. Is there anything else that I should do with this one? Gotta get better reds and whatnot and transitions into his like fleshy wingy bits. But no, it's mainly doing some panel lining, getting some good shading going on. That doesn't look like too bad. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start with a pretty strong yellow. And I'm going to use the best brush I've got right now. And then I'm going to work my way up to more of a fleshy tone yellow. Like a khaki almost. I just need a little bit of that yellow. This is a very minuscule part. Maybe go up to buff at best. Because he's supposed to have kind of, you know, gross looking milky eyes, and that's a-okay. So hopefully the yellow will provide a decent enough, like, awful, terrible look underneath it all. Let's get some yellow on the brush. Let's see if I can accurately. Not terrible. Could have been better. But then again, I'm hitting tiny, tiny eyes here with a fairly decently sized brush. There we go. There we go. Yeah, that's definitely not too bad. Now, I guess I'll let that dry for a second, and then I'm going to go ahead and hit it with some buff, some khaki, because I don't need his eyes to be that yellow. I just need to wanted to give that as a base so that it kind of plays through the khaki a little bit. Back into the khaki. There we go. And you see it's still got kind of that yellow undertone. I don't know if you can really see it. Oh yeah, that definitely do. That's what I'm looking for. Now let's watch me ruin it by trying to put some eye slits on him. So let's see. Oh, that actually turned out okay. Yeah, that actually turned out pretty okay. I ain't mad at that. Now the next thing though, I think I want to panel line all this, and like I said, what's most likely going to happen there is I might just use a wash. Like I said, this is not meant to be a display model, this is just meant to be a game piece, so I'm probably not going to work that hard. Whoops, I didn't want to get rid of that, but I guess I did. I don't want to spend a huge amount of time on these guys, I just want to get them looking nice for the tabletop, right? And that's kind of my plan here. And honestly, this guy already looks pretty darn good for the tabletop, but I'm going to try and elevate him just a bit more. Maybe not even using a wash. I might just do a panel line with a dark brown. Let's go ahead and mix up the darkest brown I've got. Get it on the palette. I am almost out of this stuff. Honestly, this is not my favorite dark brown. I really like how much darker the Dryad Bark brown is for Citadel. So what I might end up doing is going back to that once I finish off this thing of Vallejo, which I believe is charred brown. I don't know if you can see it via the light. Okay, I think also I want to make the cracks in his flesh on his head look a little more angry. So we're going to go ahead and add some red to that. So the first thing I'm going to do is hit it a little harder with the red to do the panel lining, and then go a little deeper with kind of a dark brown black wash. And we'll see how that goes. So, we got this guy. Now unfortunately, I'm noticing as I'm trying to do this, my hands have become increasingly unsteady in kind of the layover I took where I wasn't really doing a whole lot of painting. Admittedly, my lack of painting had an excuse. One of which is that I got really into playing Rogue Trader. And if you guys haven't played Rogue Trader yet and you like Warhammer, I know Baldur's Gate 3 is all the rage because Baldur's Gate 3 is an absolutely phenomenal game, because I'm playing it right now. If you want to play tabletop RPG, a CRPG in the style of Baldur's Gate, but for 40k, Rogue Trader is where it's at. I cannot emphasize how good a game Rogue Trader is. And I gotta say, it's not without its faults. It is unfortunately a buggy mess right now. And it's going through a ton of hotfixes that are doing everything in their power to try and clean up the game and get rid of some of the worst, nastier glitches. But I haven't been so absorbed in a tabletop or a computer RPG since Fallout 2 and Arcanum. And I know that ages me quite a bit, but those were like the last big table or computer RPGs that I could really play that really spoke to me. So, I cannot recommend Rogue Trader enough. It is a phenomenal, phenomenal game. And if you're into 40k, you would be doing yourself a great disservice by not playing it. And then, when the game eventually crashes and frustrates you, then you can go over to Baldur's Gate and marvel at the complexity and depth that Larian Studios managed to get into that game. Because both of those games have been absolute barn burners, and I really can't emphasize how big they've been because, I mean, you already know about Baldur's Gate. If you haven't heard about how good Baldur's Gate is, then you've probably been living under a rock. But, Rogue Trader was an incredibly, was a surprisingly good game. I wasn't expecting it to be as fantastic as it was. And I've had an absolutely incredible time playing it. My biggest issue with it, like I said, is that unfortunately Larian Studios has that problem where the game has a lot of game-breaking glitches when it first comes out, and bugs. And so you kind of gotta wait for the bug fixes to start being a thing. And so, I have a campaign right now that if I want to keep the Space Wolf character, I gotta reset the game. Because, I needed to do his, loyalty quest. And, I encountered a bug where after accepting his loyalty quest, the game never marked it as accepted. So, I'm in the area where I'm supposed to do his loyalty quest, and now there's a planet I need to scan to get the loyalty quest to activate. But because it was never considered active, when I scan the planet, nothing happens. And so when I try and go into what I guess I would call endgame, I get a message from him saying, hey, unless you help me do this thing, I can't join you on this. So I'm going to leave and search for them myself. So that means he leaves the party. Which is clearly not what I want to have happen in my game. Admittedly, I was kind of saddened to find out that even though he is okay, he's actually not that great a party member. He's kind of a trap character, because you think, oh, Space Marine, he's gonna be strong. Hey, Riptide. I hate when games glitch like that, it's the worst. Yeah, it's bloody miserable, and unfortunately, the bug fix doesn't actually fix the problem. I need to download, I can't remember what it's called, but it's something that was released that allows you to go into the game itself and activate, the triggers manually. But the only problem is that the version that's out right now is for a version of the game that I've updated past. So I can't exactly go back and fix the trigger because it wouldn't work with the current version of the game I have. So, I'm, I think, what, 80 hours into the game? 60 or 80 hours into the game, and my only choice now is to go back and start over. Though I will say, completely honestly, that I've had so much fun playing it that I am very willing to do that. Baldur's Gate, or not Baldur's Gate, though that one too, Rogue Trader is honestly the first computer game in a long time where I've been happy to just play through the entire damn thing again because I had such a great time the first time around. Like I said, I'm not done with it, but I've had so much fun playing it that it's like, I'll do it again. I've got some, now that I understand the mechanics better, I've got some new things I want to do to my character's build. So, I'm quite pleased with it, and I'm pleasantly surprised with how good a job Owlcat did with it. And I'm honestly a little sad that it got overshadowed by Baldur's Gate, though, you know, a rising tide lifts all ships. So, with Baldur's Gate becoming the huge game that it did, all that can only mean good things for studios like Larian and their Pathfinder game, and you know, whatever. Though my intense desire to play Rogue Trader and not being able to kind of kicked off my desire to try and play Baldur's Gate, because I was actually gifted it by a friend. And I tried playing it for a while and got like 4 hours in, and I was just like, this is stupid. I'm not having any fun. And it's because of how weak your characters are at the beginning of the game. And I was like, you know what? I guess I better just go ahead and give it another shot, because I really want to play a computer RPG, and this is the only other one I have. So I trudged along and kept on playing it, and then I realized, oh my god, this game is perfect. Baldur's Gate 3 is one of the single best games I've ever played, period. So this last month and a half for me has been a really darn good one when it comes to video games, because I've been kind of in this weird dearth of video games for a while. Okay, let's go ahead and do that. I was just gonna give this guy a wash and like hit all the spots with a dry brush, but honestly, this is looking pretty okay, I think. I'm pretty happy with how this guy is turning out. I was pretty unsure of how to work him, because he's just kind of a big fleshy being with like weird amounts of fur, and I've never worked on a monster like that. And since he's so pale and I want to keep him, thank you, I want to keep him as accurate to the box art as possible, I was like, how am I gonna make this guy look good? I'm not an heavy metal painter, but this is turning out pretty okay. I'm just gonna go back and touch up some bits that were a little too contrasty and hit some other ones. And then I might end up having to call it a day for him, and we'll move on to something else. I actually brought another model with me because I teach at a high school, and we have a painting club every Wednesday, but no one showed up today because it's been kind of windy and blustery, so I just went home early. But I have another one of the models sitting next to me that I'm going to work on next. And that one's a cool one. That one's the zombie commander. So he's got... one moment, let me just get him. Like, this is one I'm excited about, because learning how to do desiccated, rotting flesh is going to be a lot of fun, and I've got some neat ideas with him. Hopefully he turns out okay. Whoops, but right now... Sorry, I hit the mic. Right now, I'm just working on kind of softening up some of these contrast shadow lines that I've given him, because they came out very, very assertive against his flesh, and that's not quite what I'm going for. And then I think I'm going to give his fur a little bit of a dry brush with a lighter color, which will hopefully bring that out a bit. Less is more sometimes with a big model like that. That is true. My biggest fear, honestly, was him becoming too washed out. You know what I mean? I didn't want to have so little that he basically didn't have anything going for him, and that he just kind of looked like a big blob. But I think I'm reaching that point where I'm happy with how he turned out. I'm gonna do some more edge highlighting on like the nails or the claws and the teeth. But I think beyond that, Dr. Bonnie, I want to offer promotion for your channel. Oh, that's okay. Muscular pump? No, that's okay. I don't need any of that. I appreciate it though. Goodbye. They don't need to be here. Okay, so let's see. What can I do here to give that a little bit more? Yeah, that's better. Just a little bit less. Don't need all that. Okay, a little bit of brown mixed in with that, and let's see what I can do down here. Okay, give him a little bit of shadow down here under his leggy. Give him a little bit of shadow down here. Just a little bit. Nothing too difficult. Nothing too much. I don't want to overdo it with the shadows. A little bit of shadow down there. Yeah, just give it a little bit of contrast, a little bit of depth. Perfect. And get some of the rest of that stuff too, because in some places this just ended up going a little too hard and washing out some of the high spots on his flesh. So let's get some of that, hit some of that, And honestly, because of how I did this, I just kind of dry brushed his flesh on. He's got all these great little spots that are like distended and they got that blue undercoat. So I'm not too worried about how the rest of him looks right now. Take a little bit of that off. And thankfully, I accidentally over-thinned the color that I used for it, so it's coming through and almost has a glaze in a lot of spots. So that's something else that I can look forward to as I paint this guy, is that when I get some of the coffee stains off from the shade I used, or the wash, it's not going to completely cover the model and look real splotchy, hopefully. So yeah, let's get some of that. And let's also dull down his head scar a little bit, because I made it red to begin with. And the next thing I wanted to do is actually hit it with a very watered down dark brown, so it just kind of fills in and doesn't make that so bright. Dull that down a little bit with a watered down brown. Cool. But yeah, in all honesty, I can't recommend Rogue Trader enough. If you were thinking about getting it and you haven't bought it yet, and you're looking for a good computer RPG to play that's in the Warhammer 40k universe, Rogue Trader all the way. Absolutely fantastic game. It's obviously very heavily focused via the Imperium, but they do a really, really good job with it, and you meet quite a few of the other races and whatnot. So it was just overall a very enjoyable game, and it's made me want to go back to Owlcat Studios and try their Pathfinder offerings. And coincidentally enough, I have a friend who's been playing their version of Kingmaker, because that was an RPG we were running for a while before they moved, and they've been effusive about how good Kingmaker was. And I got to see the game in action, and it really does just kind of look like, you know, the Pathfinder version of what I was playing, since I guess they're using the exact same engine. And there's nothing wrong with that. The game works wonderfully. So, at some point, I'm going to have to go back and buy Kingmaker, give that game a once-over, and really kind of enjoy what Owlcat Studios has to offer. Okay. I don't think this color is doing it. This is supposed to be white mixed in with the flesh tone, the Rakarth flesh, to kind of bring out some more highlight there. So hopefully, as I continue adding it on, it'll get a little bit sharper. There it goes. Just trying to pull out some more highlight on this stuff. Nothing too drastic. Yeah, a little bit over there. Man, this guy has some really gnarly skin. I'm really digging this model. I mean, I kind of feel that way about all the Curse City models. I think they did an absolutely phenomenal job with these guys. But it's really easy to pull out some details with the highlighting. And I couldn't be more grateful for that. Some more of that white in there. Do a little bit. Just a very light highlight here to separate the fingernail from the finger. Well, the claw on the fingernail from the finger. Just a smidgen. Okay. Bring out those veins on him a little bit, make them pop. Put a little bit on the knuckle. A little bit back here. Just a very selective attempt at giving his flesh some highlights. And hopefully it'll turn out okay. Just a little bit up there. A little bit right there. A little bit right there. Okay. Good, 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 good. Oh, man. Yeah, I think next time I run through Inquisitor, my goodness, Rogue Trader, I might try and live stream it a bit, because it does such a good job with the world, does such a good job with the world building. Unfortunately, you guys are gonna have to deal with me being a goody-goody. They give you, if you haven't played it, they give you 3 kind of general approaches to the world, and I think that's pretty cool. You can choose to be dogmatic, which is basically full-on Imperium, rah-rah, you know, execute the heretics kind of stuff. Be incredibly xenophobic. Which, don't get me wrong, that all makes sense. That's an incredibly valid and fun way to play the game. They have Heretic, where you do that. You play as a heretical rogue trader who continues to try and, you know, build up their own ambitions and resort to non-imperial methods to become more powerful. And then you have the Iconoclast, which is basically kind of carving your own path and trying to be a decent person by 20th century or 21st century standards. And that's the one I've been doing with the full knowledge that there's no way this leads to a happy ending. You know what I mean? There's no way that in the 40k world they would write a can't we all just get along character and let that character be fully successful. That just seems foolish. But it definitely leads to some interesting stuff. And I appreciate that all variations are perfectly viable. Like, you can play as any of the 3 and get interesting game experiences. Like, there is a specific party member that is only recruitable if you go full heretical. And he replaces another character that you can only get if you're primarily dogmatic and Imperium aligned. And something that I really appreciate is there's another character who they basically fail their loyalty quest. Like, they still are loyal to you, but they basically fail their loyalty quest unless you encourage them to be full-on dogmatic. And I thought that was really neat, because it's like, yeah, that sucks for me because I wanted them to be super powerful and have all the good stuff, but within the lore it makes sense. They're not like bending the world to match my worldview. So I was incredibly impressed by a lot of that kind of stuff. And I look forward to going back and giving the game another playthrough. Especially since, to be honest, it actually plays a whole lot smoother than Baldur's Gate, which has to take some liberties because of it being a fully realized, fully 3D world in high detail. And Rogue Trader is not quite there. But, speaking of Baldur's Gate, I know this is kind of weird to talk about on a 40k stream, or on a Minipainting 40k stream, but I am over the moon with how in-depth and how detailed and how wonderful everything feels as you play through Baldur's Gate. Your character has so much more expression than I ever would have thought you could have in a computer RPG back when I was playing isometric ones. And it's really fun watching your character kind of have emotions and, you know, react physically to events. It makes everything feel so much more lively. And the animation teams, I'm not going to say they were absolutely brilliant, but they definitely did a lot to make Baldur's Gate's, you know, scenes have more impact than just a bunch of people standing around saying things, and then a canned attack animation happens, and then one of the characters explodes or something. There's a lot of real acting happening in the cutscenes, and I think that's absolutely awesome. So kudos to Larian for making an incredibly, making the computer RPG that I was hoping to play when I was, you know, 14, 15 years old. And, you know, I'm just hoping and excited that things get better from there. I think for now, I'm pretty much done with this guy. Like, I'm going to base him up later, and I'm going to get the terrain stuff underneath him later. But I think, for all intents and purposes, I'm done doing touch-up. I'm done trying to make him... Oh, wait, no. I know what I'm missing. I need to actually hit his nails. Give them a little bit more pop. Give them some reflection. Give them some lighting. So, they all start off as this kind of black, and they're all just going to get a little bit of highlighting on them to make them stand out a little more. And hopefully, that will do a decent enough job of making his nails have some depth to them as well. Okay. Get some more paint on there. There we go. Get a little bit on the side, get a little bit on the side. Then I'm going to go back over it with a white, which will really make it pop. Same here, we're going to hit this bottom a little bit. Yeah. Take that. Take that. Take that. There we go. Cool, 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 cool. A little bit more white. Mix it in with the black to make more of a gray. Do it again right here. And all I'm doing is going along his nails with a slightly lighter color to give his nails some depth that they would otherwise not have. They would just be this flat black, would not be too interesting to look at, but hopefully that's a bit much. I might have gone a little bit too hard there. These flat spots are not as flat as I thought they were with this brush. It's because I'm hitting them at weird angles. That's okay. Angle. Like that. Okay. Add a little bit more white in that mix. And let's try and hit these a lot smaller. There we go. There we go. There we go. These are some weird angles to try and hit, but that's okay. See, that might have gone a little bit too much, but that's fine. Ah, the joys of edge highlighting. Here, just a little bit brighter, just a little bit brighter. Same thing on this side. Let's see if I can just barely whisper touch that. That's what I'm looking for, I think. Was I able to? Yeah, I did. That got a little messy on me. It's okay. See if I can hit this without messing it up again. Just little touches of the white. That was a bit much, but that's okay. Okay, I don't think I can hit that one very well, so I'm not even going to try. Same thing with the teeth, just give them a little bit more definition, because right now they're just kind of this weird black blob against his face. So we're just going to mix in some gray again. And I'm going to try very carefully to get some reflections on those teeth. And again, this is only to get just a little bit lighter gray on those teeth to make them stand out a bit more. And that looked like it worked pretty nicely. Let's see if I can do it again with a slightly lighter color. Yeah, there we go. There we go. That looks better. Just light enough so that you can see that he's got teeth from further away than, 2 inches into your face. There we go. And yeah, I think for the most part he looks pretty okay. So I'm gonna go ahead, put him aside, come back to basing him later, just like I'm gonna do with the Ogryn. Probably base them all at the same time so it looks somewhat consistent. And now, well, there went that. I'm gonna figure out how to do this guy. This is a great looking model. I'm excited to work on him. Give me a second, I'm gonna go pick that up. So what I think is going to happen to get that desiccated flesh is I'm going to have to give him like a really strong purple undertone. I tried to go like a dark bluey purple with it, and it didn't quite get as like powerful as I wanted it to. And then I don't know what I'm going to do for his robe. I'll have to figure something out there. But he's got some cool flesh, and I really can't wait to start working on it. So let's go ahead and get started, shall we? Mix up some purple. There we go. And now I think I can go back to using the Winsor & Newton brush, which unfortunately has seen a bit of abuse in its time. And so it's definitely got less of a tip than that Citadel brush I was using. But the good news is all I've really got to do is kind of paint underneath to where I think the purple would do the most good. Like under these ribs, in the center of his chest, potentially under his neck. Definitely under there. Okay, add a little bit more black, add a little bit more purple. Let's see if I can get a little bit under there. A little bit up here with his chest. In the neck. Down there. Same thing here, just completely underneath there. Just a weird little cutoff. Again, get it underneath that rib cage. Probably underneath that part of his shoulder blade too. Into those dips in the small of his back, into the arm. Yeah. All down in that waist. Over there. Maybe a little bit right there since it's partially obscured by him. And now I think I'm actually going to go up in color into a brown rose, which is kind of like my flesh tone, but it always comes through looking really flush. And it's my job to kind of build up from there, so I'm going to build up from the brown rose to kind of a very pallid flesh tone, hopefully. I suppose we'll see. So what I think I'm going to do next is I'm going to take this black purple I've made, mix it in a little bit, with the brown rose to make a slightly brighter color, which I'll then use across kind of the rest of him. One thing I probably should be doing, which I'm not, which is kind of unfortunate, is I should be using a much smaller, more accurate brush so that I can really do some highlights. But I suppose I can also just kind of wait till later for the highlights, right? So we're going to hit all of this. And try and get this lovely rotted color. Which, it being a little washed out is going to help me in the long run, I think. I suppose I'll have to find out when I finish. But I feel like this guy is going to require me to go back a few times and fix mistakes I've made and kind of adjust as I continue painting him. Purple black, rose, mix that together. And I guess part of the other good thing is even if I don't get the mixture right all the time, or perfect, it'll just look like modeled flesh under there, right? One can hope. So let's go ahead, get some of the larger muscle groups to try and make that look a little bit more lifelike, lively. So admittedly, against this kind of like cool brown or cool black, cool gray, it does look pretty good. Okay, purple black in mixture again, mixing back in with the brown rose. There we go. That's more of what I'm looking for. Yeah, I feel like I'm going to have to go back in with like a wash or something to really hit some of these low spots on him. Just kind of the highlight right there. God, what a great looking model. There we go. This guy would have really benefited from me making sure that the seams were definitely sealed on him, I think. Just a little bit better than what I did. Mix that back in, mix that back in. Just trying to dilute down this brown rose a little bit. Hit some of these spots. I want his flesh to look like it's been sitting out for a while. Get kind of that purpley look about it. Okay. There we go. At this point, it's almost like a dry brush. Kind of very delicately hitting the high spots so that the low purples that I did will stick out a little bit more. Mix a little bit more of the black into a little bit more of that. Back to the brown rose. There we go. Now, I think what I can do next, what I hope I can do next, is just take more of this brown rose and to drown out that purpley color that I did have and work the highlights a bit better. So that hopefully... Oh, has that been out of focus? I hope not. As I go through with this guy, some of the high spots show up a little better. But don't completely overwhelm the low spots that I've done. And this is something that I haven't done very often, so I'm kind of practicing this skill as I'm working on it. And I already know for a fact something that would really help with this is having a finer brush, but unfortunately this is what I got on me right now. I'll go back to the detail brush a little later. Just little bits. Of light coming off them. I think I'll wash it out. Let's see what we can do here. Same kind of thing, trying to keep the lowest spots so that they have some deeper color to them, some deeper shadow. Working a little bit on the higher spots as best I can. Let's see what we can do from there. Just a little bit, nothing too gnarly here. Okay, I keep going way off. Sorry about that. I'm used to having this camera position slightly differently, where I kind of had to lean over that way, so I think my body is just following what it thought is the natural correct training there. And I think what's going to end up happening is I'm just going to go ahead and hit this guy with a wash to kind of blend all of the colors together. Yeah, there we go. He's definitely got a sickly look about him. And his skin definitely has an uneven mottled look, but I'm not sure if that's exactly what I was going for. Go ahead and hit some of the fingers. Go there. There we go. There we go. Just a little patches here and there to really bring out some more color to these parts of his skin. Especially right here, because it looks like it's just kind of fading back in. There we go. Hopefully that'll bring a little more color to that. Fantastic. Marvelous. Oh my goodness. So hopefully you guys had a good winter, you guys had a good holiday season, you guys had a good Christmas if you celebrate, you had a good New Year. I actually had a pretty interesting one, I thought. I've always talked about how I kind of want my
my holiday season to be full of memories I create, and I kind of want my house to be one that people feel like they can go to. And so something I started doing a couple years ago was called Friendsmas, which I think is, you know, I'm not the innovator of. That's something I took from a girlfriend at the time, but it's something I've continued even if that relationship didn't. And part of Friendsmas is having as many friends over as possible for some kind of Christmas dinner, and being able to just, you know, sit down, eat good food, celebrate each other's company. We were doing like a Secret Santa thing for a while, but it's like no one has money for that anymore. That's fine. It shouldn't be about gifts. It should be about, you know, enjoying each other's presence. And so that's kind of what we did. We're going to do. But this year, unfortunately, everyone was traveling, and so we didn't really have much of one. And what ended up happening was I found out that one of my coworkers was going to end up spending Christmas kind of alone. So my wife suggested, you know, why don't you invite him? And admittedly, I'm a fairly shy, introverted person, and so I kind of hesitated, but I was like, you know what? No, how about I put my money where my mouth is and, you know, invite people over that could use a good meal on Christmas Day. And so that's what I did, and the gentleman came over. We had a good time, had some laughs. It was a pretty good time had by all. It definitely started a little, you know, awkward because we kind of know each other in a purely professional sense. Well, did up until then, but we got to be a little more familiar with each other. You know, eat good food, enjoy each other's company. Wife got to meet one of my coworkers. It was a good time. And New Year's, had a friend come down from Michigan. Got to hang out with him and just kind of count down the clock. No pressure. Low pressure, no pressure type thing. Also got to play some Lethal Company, which is a game I had seen a lot about but had never actually played. And honestly, that game is a hoot. If you haven't played Lethal Company and you've got friends and like $40, I suggest you play Lethal Company because that game is absolutely phenomenal. It's very silly in all the best ways. Okay, so I think the next thing to do would be to add some purple back into the mix and then turn it into a glaze and really just spread it all over the entire model and their skin to try and get some kind of mid-tone happening. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and just hit this entire thing with an obscene amount of watery pinkish purple. And in doing so, hopefully get some degree of uniformity across this like mess that I've made of his skin. So let's go ahead and hit it like a wash and see what that does to making his zombie flesh look a little bit more uniform, because clearly I did not do a fantastic job with that. This might be one I end up starting over because I found this amazing paint recipe online. And I got to watch someone put it together and thinking, wow, their graveyard guy looks so freaking cool. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to buy the mini and buy the entire set before it kind of fell into my lap. But this is nowhere like it. So hopefully I can turn some lemons into lemonade and just really have some fun here. Because his skin definitely looks all kinds of desiccated. Like, these are not the colors of healthy, normal skin, right? But, you know, when it dries, it'll hopefully look a lot better. Speaking of, what I actually am going to do, I'm going to mix some of this black in with some of this brown. And we're going to go ahead and take that shovel that he's got. And we're going to paint that in. Black, mix it with some more of the brown. Let's see what we can do here while the skin gets to meld together a little bit. You because I feel like part of what's throwing me off is that the rest of his color profile hasn't shown up yet, so he just kind of looks like this awkward pink dude against a whole sea of cool blue. And I know that that's my fault, but I'd like to see what it looks like with a little bit more of the actual model being colored in. And maybe that'll sway my opinion a bit. Something that I've started to learn more recently that I'm still really bad at is trust the ugly phase. Because there's going to be a point where your model looks like trash because it's in transition. And that's with like any creative work, I suppose. And what's really going to help it is that at some point you're going to be able to put all the pieces together and they're all going to fall into place and then it's going to be beautiful. But until then, it's basically in the ugly phase, right? So something that you should always be pretty good about is trust the ugly phase with the knowledge that it's all going to fall into place. And unfortunately, I'm really bad about that. I'm like, why doesn't it look good? Why doesn't it look like it's supposed to? And then I panic and I start to overcompensate when I really don't need to. So hopefully, after doing that glaze wash, I've pulled back just enough and I'm not going to have weird looking flesh tone looking back at me. Admittedly though, like I said before, it's one of the easiest and best parts about this hobby is that if you screw it up, paint over it, right? There's nothing saying you can't start a model over. And I know it feels time consuming and I know it feels wasteful, but after a while you're going to have put so much paint on so many models and spent so much time on it that having to redo one isn't going to feel like the worst thing in the world. I don't know, I feel like maybe I should give him like a purple wash to really bring the cool idea back into him that he is, you know, rotting. Because right now, I feel like I'm kind of missing that a bit with him. I don't know, I'll figure it out. I might highlight him a little later, but it's something I'm probably going to have to do off camera simply because there's so much to him that I can't really see what I'm doing due to how the camera is angled. Get him thigh. Go. I think that's the only fleshy bit on him that's really showing. Kind of the same thing here. Let's see if I can get this. I don't even know if he's in focus anymore. I'm so dialed in on trying to paint this guy that I haven't been paying attention at all to how in focus the camera is. So I apologize for that. A little bit brighter up top. And there we go. Hey, Prime Dragoon. I was wondering because I sort of accidentally napped, didn't see the stream notice right after the question answered. That's fair. Yeah, no, the thing disconnected because I think it's because I saved a picture. And for some reason, saving a picture causes my computer's internet to just crap out for a minute. And so, it might have been going, it might have not. But, I think that's kind of the biggest problem right now with my internet connection, and that's what overloads it and causes me to randomly disconnect, is either I'm still connected to the VPN and I've forgotten, or I've saved a file. Because apparently that's causing me to disconnect right now. I don't get it. I don't understand it. I don't know enough about computers to fix it. So I'm just gonna make sure I'm not on the NordVPN, and also make sure that I'm not saving anything while I'm streaming. Because I saved a reference picture for this guy, or for the last thing I was working on, and just suddenly disconnected. That felt weird. Okay. How dare I save a file? I know, right? So this is how he's looking so far, and I think he's turning out, well, let's see if it'll focus. I think he's turning out okay, but his skin pattern is a lot more modeled than I expected it to be. And so I'm just trying to hit some highlights, and I think eventually you should know better, a custom Discord server that you just paste links of all your references way easier. That is true. Wasn't thinking about that at the time. So let's see, what can I do here to really... Actually, I think that coloring is pretty decent. What I'm going to need to do next is go pull it all back away from this almost living flesh tone back into a dying flesh tone, I think. So, we're going to go back to the Rakarth flesh. I have plenty of. Yeah, I know you're just messing with me. It's been a long day and I'm sleepy. Okay, there we go. Let's get some of that on there. And I think I'm going to switch over to the slightly finer tip of this Citadel brush that I have, that I'm still using. And we're going to use that to layer on some of this awful desiccated flesh tone. Going to mix it in a bit with the original color. Hey, Dunkle Funkle, how's it going? Just making sure some people take it. Yeah, that is true. I mean, especially with the internet, it's really hard to tell when someone is, you know, pulling your leg and messing with you versus when they're being dead serious. I, right now, am working on some Warhammer Cursed City minis, because even though I've wanted this game for a while, I was gifted it as part of a commission payment. And part of the reason I wanted it is because I want to legitimately give the game a try. I've heard it's really good, but also because the minis are absolutely gorgeous, and I wanted to paint them. So that's where I am right now. I'm layering up this zombie man's flesh tone, and eventually I'm going to finish the rest of him. How are you guys doing? You take stupid stuff about fighting animals as 100% face value. Fair enough. Fair enough. I had a friend in college who used to joke that dogs have no souls. And my girlfriend at the time always made kind of this horrified noise because she's very compassionate. And so he'd be like, "What? Dogs don't have souls?" And then I'd just hear this tiny whimper. I'd be like, "What? It's true." And I don't think she ever knew he was kidding. But, you know, it's a whole thing. Hey, Snowtwig. Good to see you. Thank you for popping in. Go to bed. Enjoy your sleep. I'm going to keep painting this zombie man and hope that the flesh tone ends up looking good, because right now it's just kind of a mottled mess. But I will say, it's going pretty okay. I'm painting some Warhammer Cursed City guys because I got the box as part of a payment for a commission, and I really want to play the game, but I also want to make all of the game pieces look absolutely stunning. You're doing great, by the way. Managed to get a great deal on eBay. The recruit box for $30 and a Redemptor for $36. That's amazing. Old Testament animals don't have a soul. As a pet owner and lover of my snakes, I would like to burn every text that asserts this. Yeah. It's a whole thing. Not one that I feel too well inclined to comment on. Okay, what was I doing? But yeah, so in terms of things I've painted already, I painted this guy off stream, and I really like how he turned out. He was my first test model, and I think I did a pretty good job, not perfectly replicating the box art, but doing about as good a job as I can do to make him look close to it. So, pretty happy with how he looks. And just recently, at the beginning of this stream, before I started painting Zombie Man, I was working on this guy. Yeah, so he's supposed to be like a vampire monstrosity, I guess, from the Soulblight, not the Soulblight Gravelords. I don't remember. I forget the faction names for Age of Sigmar, but I am absolutely in love with the models that they're putting out. So now I'm working on him, and I remember seeing a video a while ago of someone very talented, far more talented than me, doing just an absolutely sick job on the flesh. And so I'm doing my best to replicate it, but it's been too long and I've kind of forgotten what the guy did. So now I'm just kind of doing what feels right and layering up high spots to give him this kind of diseased, fleshy look. Batpire? I guess so. They have a name. They have some cool Age of Sigmar proprietary name that prevents, you know, other companies from poaching it. But I don't remember what it is right now. So instead, I'm just gonna call him a vampire monster dealie until I can go back and remember the name of the thing. But yeah, I'm getting past the ugly phase on this and moving into the, hey, this paint job actually looks pretty decent phase. I was just talking about trusting the ugly phase and being aware that even if your paint job doesn't look great now, that's because it's in transition. And eventually, once it all starts coming together, that's when your paint job's really gonna sing. So that's what I'm trying to continue to tell myself as I continue trying to highlight this guy and make him look decent. I've seen everyone using pure dry brush technique for undead flesh stuff recently, so I wanted to retouch those skills on the fleshies. Yeah, you can do a lot with dry brushing. It's an incredible skill when you know how to do it right. But unfortunately, for what I'm trying to do, it's a little, not unrefined, non-specific. It doesn't have the kind of fine control that I'm trying to get with these guys. At least I don't have the fine control using that technique. So I'm just kind of chugging along, giving this guy increasingly bright highlights on his flesh, on the places that would really warrant it, and hoping that I'm not wandering too far off camera and out of focus. Yeah, I suppose so. Because, I mean, it is a very broad strokes type painting technique, and it does do some cool things for really elevating the texture of the Mini, but in some cases, it doesn't quite have the control that I'm looking for. Let's see, speaking of control, can I only get some of the fleshy stretchies on this guy's face? So what army do I normally play? I'm in kind of flux right now. I have been playing Imperial Fist for the past few years. I got into 40k because during the pandemic, and I started with Tau, and then realized that I was very bored playing Tau in 9th edition. So I bought the Indomitus starter box and decided to paint them up as Imperial Fists because I really liked Rogel Dorn from the text-to-speech bit. And I feel partially encouraged to revisit dry brushing for tiny stuff, specifically because these brushes are just ridiculously tiny and stiff. Yeah, that's a good use for them, actually. That's a perfect use for them. And I later found out that, like, the Imperial Fist and Rogel Dorn actually match my personality really well, so I just kind of leaned into it. So I used to have about 4,000 points of Imperial Fists, and I sold a lot of it down to, like, my core army. And right now, I'm kind of in the process of building a bunch of combat patrols so that students can play with them, because I work as a high school teacher and I host the Tabletop Gaming Club. And Warhammer is definitely not a game for moderately poor inner city kids in terms of being able to start it up, but they are severely interested and have been really, really excited to use the combat patrols I do have. And they just had, you know, winter break and they had the holiday season, and apparently at least 3 of them asked for combat patrols. So we went from having just the stuff I had to a kid getting the Tyranid combat patrol, another one getting the World Eater combat patrol, and another one getting I think he wants to get a Grey Knight combat patrol but hasn't. So I'm happy that I got them started on this. I feel bad for their parents and their wallet, but of all the hobbies you could have, this is definitely one of them. I feel like it's one of the lesser destructive ones they could be learning in this school, given that half the kids, not half the kids, but a sizable number of the kids go into the hallway bathrooms to get high. Which, you know, I don't have a problem with pot and marijuana usage, but I have a problem with kids with underdeveloped brains using it. So yeah, that's the whole thing. Yeah, so that's kind of what's happening there. I'm glad that you think it's pretty cool, and I wish that you had a club that you could go to for that. But that's kind of why I did it, is I realized that this is not something that would be economically sexy for them to try and do without some kind of on-ramp. And we were given some Warhammer stuff by Games Workshop, but it was definitely not, like, super useful. There wasn't enough there to really sate their desire to play games. It was some starter Marines and some starter Necrons, and that was kind of it. And it's like, yeah, that's nice to paint one model, but it doesn't leave you with much, you know? Warhammer's a great hobby when you're a kid, assuming you love to hear your parents say no. Yeah, well, I mean, I appreciate what they did give us, because it allowed us to get into, like, the modeling stuff. And, hopefully we're able to do more. That's kind of why I've taken on the onus of buying the combat patrols and wanting to have them for the students, because that way they're not beholden to the ridiculous price points. Actually, something I painted, I showed it on my Discord, but I don't think most of you guys have gotten to see it. Give me a second. This is... Okay, I had a Death Guard combat patrol that I sold because I painted it back when I was first getting into painting, and while I did a pretty solid job, I felt like I could do better now. So I sold it to someone, and they, because of the painting and whatnot, they basically gave me enough money to buy a whole nother box. So I bought another box for the Death Guard combat patrol, and painted it to not the highest standard I could, but definitely a considerably higher standard. And I decided that since I really like the model Typhus, and I really want it to look good, I decided to paint Typhus to the highest standard I possibly could. And I actually found a tutorial video that helps you do like a high contrast version of Typhus so that he really stands out. It was like a high contrast Death Guard color scheme. And I posted him on the Discord that I have, but I don't think it really does the model justice. So like, this is what he ended up looking like. And I'm incredibly proud of like the non-metallic metal on the scythe. I think that the armor looks absolutely fantastic. I don't know how I managed it, but the Nurgling that's eating his guts over on the side turned out absolutely amazing. I've chosen to paint every one of my neighbor's miniatures for the highest possible standard I could, so he feels absolutely awful about it. Wasn't expecting to also have to assemble his entire army. Yeah, that is true. Army assembly is definitely its own thing. Uh-oh, I froze. There you go. I froze again. Okay. But yeah, so I'm incredibly proud of this model. This is probably the best model I've ever painted. As I told my wife when I showed it to her, like, this is a model that I would see on Instagram and wish I could paint this well. But I own it, and he's mine. So I actually sold my Death Guard army because I wasn't having a whole lot of fun playing them. But painting him up to this standard made me want to buy a Death Guard army again. So it looks like I'm going to end up doing that. And I also have a Mortarion that I painted a long time ago. And I did a good job with him, don't get me wrong. I don't want to short sell myself. But I kind of want to paint him in this high contrast style that I painted Typhus in to make him really just like explode off the tabletop with color, you know what I mean? So there's a really good chance I'm going to try and sell that Typhus and just do it again, or not Typhus, that Mortarion that I have, and just buy another one and do it again. And just make him have like an explosion of color everywhere. Or I suppose I could just do the intelligent thing and paint over the one I own, but you know, I want to reassemble the guy. He's a cool dude. So hopefully I'll get to that eventually, but there's a whole lot of other things on the docket that I kind of want to work on. I've got a Turnip 28 army that is still kind of waiting for me to assemble and prime it, which is another doofy war game. I've got a Custodes combat patrol that I need to finish up because I kind of got real tired. Hopefully we'll get more than a single box of Shroud Runners eventually. Yeah, like, that's the worst thing about this hobby is definitely the price. And being like, man, I wish I could afford more than one unit. Like, I remember specifically when I first got into the hobby, I bought a a broadside battlesuit because I just love the idea of a mecha using a giant fuck-off gun, is what I called it. And I was like, this is a lot of money. This is a whole video game. I could have like a video game and get dozens of hours of, yeah, it would be nice to play the game, right? I'm sorry you're in that kind of situation. That does really suck. But I remember buying a broadside battlesuit and just thinking, God damn, this is too much money. I can't spend this kind of money on a game. Why do people do this? It's just a model. And I put them together, and I had fun putting them together and whatnot. And then I was done with it. I was like, okay, I got that out of my system. I don't need to buy any more Warhammer. And then I saw the Tau start collecting. And I was like, man, those models are cool. And they would be so cool to go along with the broadside. It would be like a single squad just protecting... no, I bought a set of Fire Warriors. That was it. You know, just protecting this one half broken down suit. And I painted them up, and that took me for forever. And then I went all in on the start collecting. And at that point, I think I was playing not Combat Patrol, Kill Team, the original Kill Team with one of my friends. And then it just kept snowballing from there. This game just has a... You need to recall when getting into the hobby. You do need to recall that when getting into the hobbies, they're pretty much the equivalent in the end. It always costs $500 to $600 to go reasonably into a new hobby. Video games, console cost, computer. Yeah, but you know, when you come from a culture of video games and then you try and get into like plastic miniatures, it doesn't feel the same, right? You aren't wrong though. There is that initial investment that can cost you a tremendous amount of money whether you realize it or not. Like, when I got this computer, it's a laptop that I bought specifically so that I could edit videos better for a thing that me and another teacher were doing. For a thing that another teacher and I were doing. And this was like a $1,300 laptop. I actually really like how that color turned out. Does this guy look properly, like, exhumed? Does he look like... do you guys think he looks properly zombified? Like he's an undead dude that's unearthing other undead dudes? Did I do an okay job with that? Bikes, good lord. Swords for Temeshigiri? Yeah, no, I'm aware of the sword things. I have a habit of spending about $1,000 into a hobby, and then kind of getting bored with it and hitting a saturation point. And that's definitely a thing that I have a problem with. And that has not happened yet with the mini painting. I've been so in love with this that I've just kept going. So pretty clearly, I finally found the hobby. I think a wash would make them look even better. I worry about doing a wash simply because, again, there's a lack of control going on there. And I'd really want to make sure that, you know, he looks about as good as he can. So what I'll probably end up doing is I will take that advice and I am going to darken up some of the shadow spots, but I don't think I'm going to do it with a wash. I'm trying to get better at brush control, because even though I don't ever plan on like trying to win a golden demon or compete for one of those high-end artsy-fartsy projects, I do want to get to a level where I wouldn't feel embarrassed if I entered. You know what I mean? And I'm slowly getting there. So hopefully, sooner rather than later, I can hit that level of technique. And then I won't feel so bad about charging people stupid money for painting their minis. Touch it with a little blue, go find your most dismal looking gray. Yes sir, that's exactly what I'm gonna do. I only have one gray. It's kind of a cool looking gray right here. Light gray. And I'm going to take a little bit of blue, and then we're going to do some lining to make him look a little bit more shadowy. Okay. And actually, after that, I'm going to have to go because I have dinner with my wife at about 6-ish. And it's 5:53 right now. And then there's a chance that I'm going to play some Lethal Company with a friend and my wife. And we're going to scream like small children. Okay, unfortunately, the blue I have is a Azul Denso. It's kind of a heavy blue, so this might not end up being the color that you were thinking of. And if it's not, I might end up mixing some purple in there. Okay, I do kind of like this pallid, this undead pallid look it's got going on. Okay, so let's see. Let's mix that in. Let's see what I can do here. Yeah, see, I think that undertone of pink that I used might have messed with him a little bit, but I do definitely like this color. This, like, weird pallid gray that I've got going. Maybe if I mix in some of the flesh tone with it, too. Ooh. That looks like the life's been sucked out of it. Okay, so let's see about right there. Yeah, that's a pretty good color. I like that color. Especially since I can just kind of put it on real light and it'll just kind of cover everything with this shade of this kind of... It just looks fresh. Yeah. I get that. Like, I dig that. Especially, actually, how it goes over the pink. It does a really good job of kind of neutralizing it, making it look like there's not a whole lot of blood flow happening underneath. You've got some desiccated sinew, and then you've got kind of this like, deadish tone. Yeah, thanks for the advice. I am not artistically inclined at all. This was not something I was ever good at as a kid. This was something I've just kind of picked up as an adult, and I've slowly been, like, headbutting a wall to try and get better at it, and have basically come to the mantra of persistence will get me there. And it's been kind of working out, because my first few models did not look anything like this. And yeah, I think the constant layering is blue will pale and deaden the flesh, yellows or red will bring flesh tone more ruddy. Yeah, they're gonna make it look like there's blood circulating underneath, and that's not quite what I'm going for. So we're gonna add a little bit more water to this to thin it down some more. And then I'm gonna need to change this wet palette because it's definitely starting to give in some of the paper. Yep. Okay, so let's mix that together a little bit more. Yeah, this palette paper's having a hard time. I've definitely abused it. Give it a little bit more in here. A little bit more there. A little bit more there. A little bit more on top. There. That's looking good. Good. Okay, under the rib cage. Okay. Into the ribs. Like that. Those ribs. Go ahead and keep that touched by the heavy shadow. The palette paper became part of my paint. Yeah. When I first started, I was like, wet palette seemed like a waste of time and money. I don't need a wet palette. And then I got one on the behest of my friend who got me into this hobby, and I was like, oh, that's why you do wet palettes. It's been an amazing tool for keeping paints fairly moist and mixing paints. It's been fantastic. I've been using this off-brand artist wet palette to base this model in paper mache. I could carve it to look like anything. You're not wrong. You are not wrong. Okay. There's some really cool stuff you can do with terrain, and unfortunately that's one of my weak spots. I'm not very good at basing models. I tend to just use like a texture paste and leave it at that. Sometimes I do some more cool stuff, but generally not often. I think the best model I've ever based was Belisarius Call, and I cheated with him. I ended up using some 3D printed stuff as like the base. So that doesn't really count. Though admittedly, the one I did for Doig Swift ended up looking really good. That one had a little bit more thought put into it. My neighbor actually asked me to leave the bases as is. Yeah, no, that's that really takes away from the model. The models look so much better when you base them. Why would you want them? Maybe they had their own ideas of how they were going to base it. I think the ones that that really get me, that make me sad, is when I see them, like, put texture paste over the top of the base, and then they just paint the entire base in that color. Like, it's your model, do what you want with it, but just know that that makes me sad. It just ends up looking really sloppy and you know, incomplete. Like they meant to do a rim and they forgot to. He has no idea on basing. He has a degenerative nerve disease, so he doesn't have superfine control. That's really unfortunate. I'm glad that you're helping him. I've seen a lot of people ask that question, you know, how can I paint when I have tremors or when I don't have or when I have a nerve injury? And those always make me so sad, because it's like you unfortunately can't do this amazing hobby as well as you'd probably like to because of that issue. And so I'm glad that he's got a friend like you. They've got a friend like you that will help them. That's not terminal. He's fine. Well, that's all. I'm glad to know that. It's just more of like, you know, there's probably a lot that he's got brewing around in their head that they've got to kind of filter. Which I guess though you're doing a great service to them. You're making their hobbying a whole lot cooler by helping them. Okie dokie. So yeah, I think mixing a little more of the flesh tone with the gray will help. I don't want it to be completely dead. In this case, it looks just a little too blue for my liking. So I'm gonna mix in some more of the Rakarth flesh to give it just a slightly fleshier tone. Because right now it just looks like he's almost neon, at least without the light. I actually do the base thing with only one color. I mean, that's fair. If that's what you want to do, again, it's your model, you know? Do what makes you happy. If you decide that the way you want to paint your guys is to take some latex paint from painting your walls and dump them in there, cool. Have fun. Don't ever take... I mean, you know, if someone doesn't like it, then when they paint their models, then they can do it their way. Okay, I'm actively attempting to drag the man out of his apartment more regularly. All he does is drink beer and smoke. I'm actively worried because this weird, strange little part of me that cares. You don't know how to improve? Well, there's a couple ways, especially if you're looking for basing. One of the easiest ways to improve is by texture paint. Yeah, and just try things. I mean, they're plastic models. What's the worst that can happen? You strip them and you try again. Vallejo makes something called earth texture, and it's literally just like this horrifying paste that you can just take off and smear all over the model like peanut butter. Well, not over the model, all over the base. And then you paint over that, and it ends up looking, you know, not bad. When you're first doing it, it looks kind of weird. I was thinking about going ahead, sanding the bases down flat, then carving 2 straight lines and doing marbling. You can do that too. That's really cool. Some people do that. They'll make like tiles out of the plastic. So like, this is what it looks like when it's just on a prime model, but eventually I'm going to spray over it. And I'm gonna do some texturing to it to make it pop. And eventually, what ends up happening is, let me find an example. You get something like this. Yeah, the Tactical Astro Granite. That's a perfect example. Unfortunately, the GW stuff is really expensive, so I'm sorry you're paying that much. But it's perfectly fine for what it is. And like, this guy's not even a great example, because I didn't do a very good job painting the brim. But if you do it right, you can get something that looks pretty okay. What paper? You can never do aged paper? That's a good question. You mean like on purity seals and whatnot? I use a bone color and I wash it and then I dry brush it with a lighter color. Oh, yeah, the purity seals. Like this on him. I didn't even do that good a job on this. I think I painted it with skeleton bone, and then I hit it with a brown wash, and then I dry brushed it with the same base color. And honestly, it looks like it looks dirty, which is kind of what I was going for, but it's a really unrefined dirty. You got this. You got the starter pack with 6 colors and 3 marines, so the price wasn't that bad. Yeah, I'm sorry that it's that the game is so dang expensive, but that is not a bad place to start. Actually, let me see. Can I find a better example of this? I think this will do. Like with this one, Wraithbone White, Brown Wash, Dry Brush. Perfect. That's exactly what you need to do. Actually, she doesn't have any purity seals on her, does she? No, she doesn't. Okay, never mind. I forgot to put purity seals on my Sister of Battle. That's okay. But yeah, that's pretty much all it is you're trying to create contrast, right? So, the basic steps of, like, any modeling that you do is to, especially if you're doing it the GW style, is to start with your base color and then hit it with a wash so that the low parts end up getting darker, and then you hit it with a highlight so that the higher spots are brighter, so that way you have you know, really big really deep contrast between the high spots and the low spots. Sisters of Battle aren't pure any wall after all, they're already broken in. I'm not sure what you mean by that, but I do think it's really funny that in what the heck is it called? In Rogue Trader, one of the only characters you can't romance is the Sister of Battle, because her faith and love for the Emperor is stronger than any physical attraction she could have to a character. You play Black Templar, so to this point I have a Captain in Gravis armor, 5 Sword Brethren, and I just got the army set for Christmas. They're mainly combat veterans. It also was a slightly lewd joke. Yeah, I figured. I just didn't want to assume, because the last thing I want to do is make an assumption about the humor and then find out you're not being. Plus the things you found on eBay. That's probably the smartest way to go about it, is army boxes and eBay, because that way you're spending, you know, discounted money. Or discounts instead of trying to buy the things at MSRP. Which Captain with Gravis armor do you have? Do you have the one that's like lunging forward with his gun arm? Or do you have the one that's kind of like lifting his sword aloft? Because I really like the captains in Gravis armor, and I own neither of them. Or do you have the one that looks like a chess piece because he's just kind of leaning back and resting his sword on his hip? You're buying someone else's regret? Yeah, I mean, that's definitely one way to look at it. In some cases, you know, they just outgrew it, or decided the new one. Yeah, that one's a great one, where he's like stepping forward and like stabbing with his left arm, I think it is. Yeah, I bought the, I ended up buying, the mono pose one that doesn't have any other loadouts. People on eBay in Canada just straight up ask for full price. That's becoming the biggest problem with eBay, is like, it is just nothing but MSRP. Even on, you know, used models, or they claim it's professionally painted and it looks like absolute hot garbage. You would live south of the border if possible. Yeah, the currency is a little bit better, but, you know, the United States has their own issues. But yeah, let's see. Where did the... I'm missing a thing. That's okay, I'll find it later, I guess. Yeah, give me a second. I'm gonna see if I can find my... I made my Gravis captain. He was supposed to be my chapter master. So I actually ended up buying the Praetor that comes with the Age of Darkness Horus Heresy box, and I used that amazing bearded, mustachioed, helmetless head for him. So yeah, let me get it. Yeah, it's really interesting to collect Warhammer when you have to ask your mom every time if you want to buy something. Yeah, I bet. Unless they're also a nerd, they just don't get it right. So yeah, I have this guy. Actually, one moment. Let me see if I can... I've got too many things in the background now that are trying to pull focus away. Put him on this thing. I have... Uh-oh, everything froze. I have this one. And again, that head is from the Horus Heresy Praetor. and I kind of love it. I love the head. I love the model. I think this looks like a game piece, but is also incredibly detailed, and it just makes me really happy. I'm also really proud of how this cape turned out. It looks absolutely fantastic. You want to give me a fresh reason to stay home and not hang out with my friends and pick up a drug habit? Because that's Warhammer 40k. At the same time, you could also argue, hey mom, you want me to not do drugs? Because there's this game called Warhammer 40k that I could play with friends. Can't spend money on drugs if you're spending it on plastic crack. But yeah, so this guy was my chapter master for a while. And then I realized I had like 80 captains. So I started painting them different company colors. And yeah, I love this model. He's now my non-named leader for my Imperial Fist army until when I'm not using Torgaradon. He ended up kind of getting replaced by this guy because I bought this guy off of Forge World before they stopped selling him. And another freaking amazing model. He's a Tartaros Terminator Legion Praetor. And god dang, is this just a cool model. I love the dynamic pose. I love how hulking he is. I love that he's all Imperial Fist symbolism. I think this is a great model. I luckily got my main school friend into Warhammer, so we meet up almost every Wednesday to build, paint, and play some Warhammer. He plays Tau. Oh my goodness. Yeah, Tau are pretty cool. They were my starting army. Yeah, it's a good model. It was a bitch to put together though, because Forge World Finecast is not fun. That being said though, it's 10 after, and I gotta get going. So thank you guys for joining me. This is what we did today. The warp isn't real, demons don't exist. Yeah, that is fair. So this is what we got done today. We finished this guy up and kind of got him to a level of, you know, I'm okay with it. And we started working on this guy, and you guys helped me make his flesh look a little less lively. And so thank you again for that. I'm probably going to finish him up next time and hopefully get him to, you know, this level. But anyway, thank you again, guys. Have a great rest of your evening. I hope to do this again soon, potentially tomorrow, and start a streak up again, because I was really going at it for a while, and then, you know, things got in the way. So looks like the internet works fine as long as I don't download things. So have a great one, guys. I'm gonna actually see who can I raid, because I always forget about raiding, and that raiding is a thing, and then I feel like a dick because I should be helping grow communities. Let's look for Warhammer. Anyone doing any Warhammer modeling? It actually does AC Miniatures. Oh, he's working on Horus Ascended? I think we gotta raid this guy. So let's go ahead and do that. /raid AC Miniatures. Yep, we're gonna go ahead and do this. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. He's got a really cool model that he's building, and you're gonna be blown away by how beautiful this thing looks just from the preview window. So enjoy, guys. Have a good one.